Let me ask you something, okay? Have you ever caught yourself staring at your phone, waiting for her to reply heart, racing every time the screen lights up, hoping it's her? If so, I want you to remember this. The moment you need her, you've already lost her. I know that sounds harsh, okay? But it's not meant to hurt. It's meant to wake you up. We were raised to think that love means pursuit, okay? That the more you give, the more you'll be loved. That if you're always available, always kind, always proving your worth, she see your value and never let you go. But here's the truth. Most men aren't told. Real power doesn't come from pleasing. It comes from presence. It comes from the quiet strength of knowing you don't need her approval to feel whole. See, the second your self-worth depends on her attention, you've already handed over your power. You're no longer the author of your story. You're a character in hers. And trust me, no woman wants to lead a man who can't lead himself. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming grounded. It's not about walking away to punish hurts. About walking away because you can. Because your value doesn't live in her validation. Think about it. How many times have you seen a woman lose interest the moment a man gets too available, too eager, too emotional? Not because she's cruel, but because energy speaks louder than words, and neediness screams insecurity. Real attraction, lasting respect, begins the moment. Stop chasing and start standing. So if you're in that place right now, waiting for a text, wondering what you did wrong, asking yourself how to fix it, pause. Just pause, not to analyze her, but to reclaim yourself. Because this moment, right here, is where power is either lost or reborn. Let's talk about something, uncomfortable something most men never say out loud. We were raised in a world that taught us the wrong kind of love. A version of love that sounds noble, but secretly breaks us. They told us, be the nice guy, be the provider, always be there for her. They called it romance. They called it being a good man. But what if I told you that version of love was never designed to make you respected, was designed to make you obedient? Think about it. How many times have you poured your heart into someone, showed up, gave your all, stayed patient, did everything right, only to be overlooked, ignored, replaced? And then, like a cruel twist, she chooses someone who doesn't chase, someone who doesn't text a dozen times a day, someone who could walk away mid-sentence if he feels disrespected. You see, she doesn't want to carry a man. She wants to feel carried by his energy, okay? Not his flowers, not his flattery, okay? But his grounded, unshakable presence. The truth is, most modern men are exhausted. It's not because they don't love hard, but because they've been loving in a way that demands their silence, their sacrifice, and their self-worth. And what's worse, they think it's normal. They think being invisible, being chosen last, being tolerated instead of desired is just part of being a good man. Okay. But let me say this clearly. A woman cannot love a man who needs her more than he respects himself. The game changes the moment you realize she doesn't want the man who worships her. She wants the man who doesn't need her to feel complete. That's not arrogance. That's maturity. That's leadership. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the beginning of your awakening. Let's break something down that no one teaches men, but every woman feels instantly. Neediness kills attraction. Now, I'm not talking about wanting connection. That's human. But needing her to validate you, to text you back, to make you feel like a man. That's the energy that silently tells her, I don't know who I am without you. And that's when everything starts to slip. You don't have to say it out loud. She can feel it in your tone, in how quickly you respond, in how your entire emotional state shifts based on her mood or the 3 dots on the screen. You might think you're being attentive, caring, but to her, it's pressure, it's weight, it's the slow erosion of mystery. You've become something she picks up when she's bored and puts down when she's not. Not because she's heartless, but because, whether you know it or not, you trained her to treat you that way. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment she senses that her presence defines your worth, she subconsciously starts to pull away, not always on purpose, but instinctively, because women don't fall in love with a man who needs them. They fall for the man with something bigger than them, a mission, a sense of direction, a life that doesn't orbit around their attention. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you went a day without checking if she watched your story, without rereading that one message, hoping for some hidden sign? That's the trap of need, and the only way out is to stop seeking her energy and start reclaiming your own. Because when a man no longer needs her to feel complete, that's when she starts seeing him differently. That's when desire returns, not through pressure, but through presence. Let's get honest for a second. Constantly texting her, asking for her opinion on everything, waiting for her to reply before you move, it doesn't feel like love. It feels like connection. It feels like care. But at its core, it's dependency. And dependency is the quiet killer of desire, you see. Love needs space to breathe, mystery, polarity, a spark that's born from watching someone walk their own path, not cling to yours like a lifeline. But when a man starts building his emotional world around her responses, he becomes predictable. It stops being magnetic. She doesn't want to be your oxygen. She wants to feel your fire. Women aren't drawn to men who orbit their moods. They're drawn to men who move with purpose, with clarity, with that quiet intensity that says, I'm building something with or without you. Ask yourself, when did she seem most drawn to you? It wasn't when you were waiting by your phone. It was when you were out living. When your focus wasn't on her replies, but on your growth, your mission, your edge. There's nothing wrong with love, but love that's rooted in need quickly becomes emotional weight. And the truth is, no woman wants to carry a man who can't stand on his own. She wants to feel safe in your presence, not because you're soft, because you're solid. So, the next time you find yourself overthinking a message, rereading what she said, or waiting for that little typing bubble to appear, pause and ask yourself, am I loving or am I leaning too hard? Because when you start leaning on her to complete you, it's eventually step back to see if you can stand. So here's the turning point, okay? If you spent weeks or maybe months scrolling through old texts, checking if she watched your story, analyzing every silence like it's a secret message, it's time to stop. Not out of spite, not to win the breakup, but because you can't heal in a space where your energy keeps leaking. You want your power back? Withdraw it from her and reinvest it into you. Start small. Set your alarm earlier than you want to. Read 10 pages of a book that challenges your mindset. Sweat, not to impress, but to remind your body it still belongs to you. She better, not because she might see you again, but because you have to live inside that body. Track your habits like your future depends on it, because it does. Here's the hard truth. The man she was once drawn to wasn't obsessed with her approval. He was obsessed with becoming something more. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that. You let the relationship become your mission, and the moment that happened, you lost both. Discipline isn't punishment. It's freedom and pain. Pain is a teacher. A brutal one, yes, but a loyal one. It doesn't lie. It shows you exactly where you're weak, exactly what you've been avoiding. Most men run from that, but you can choose to sit in it, to face it, to build something out of it. Because rebuilding isn't glamorous. It's early mornings. It's choosing the gym over the phone. It's putting your focus on things that don't reward you instantly. But that's how greatness is made. You don't get your power back by making her miss you. You get it back by becoming someone even you admire again. There's a kind of man who walks into a room, doesn't have to say a thing. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't try to impress. He's not chasing attention because attention naturally bends toward him. Not because he's loud, but because he's still. Stillness is rare. Stillness is power. Most men are ruled by reaction. One cold text and they spiral. Delay in response and they start explaining, overthinking, performing. But here's the truth. The more you react, the less she respects. Because every reaction tells her you're uncertain. Every over-explanation says, I'm afraid to lose you. Be in fear, no matter how well disguised, has always felt. But the man who doesn't flinch, the one who stays calm when she pulls away, who doesn't chase when she tests him, that man creates gravity. You see, women don't test you to hurt you. They test you to feel you, to sense if the ground beneath them is steady or made of sand. Because attraction doesn't live in words, lives in presence. And nothing is more attractive than a man who cannot be moved by moods, by threats, by silence. This isn't about being cold. It's about being rooted, when you can hold your frame, when you can sit in discomfort without breaking. Speak less and mean more. Stay quiet when your ego begs to scream. That's when she leans in. Because she's not looking for perfection. She's looking for strength she can trust. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to remain. And if she walks away, let her. Because the kind of man she'll never forget is the one who stayed solid while the whole world shook. Here's the truth. No one really tells you. Your biggest battle isn't with her. It's not with her silence, her cold replies, or her tests. The real battle is with yourself. It's between your impulse to react and your ability to pause. Between your ego that screams for validation and your higher self that knows silence is power. It's the war between the boy who wants to be Sanand, the man who no longer needs to prove anything. And most men lose this war, not because they're weak, okay? Not because they lack value, because they never learned how to lead themselves when the storm hits. They panic when she pulls away. They fold when they feel ignored. They chase when they should be still. And here's the things she's watching. Not your words, not your flowers. She's watching your center. She's watching if you can hold it. Your mood collapses when hers shifts. If your direction wavers when emotions rise. Because a woman doesn't just want love, she wants stability. And stability begins in your mind. So how do you build it? You meditate not to feel spiritual, but to sharpen your awareness. Train your body not for looks, but for discipline. You read Stoicism, philosophy, psychology, not to sound wise, but to rewire the way you respond. And most importantly, you sit with discomfort. You don't run from it. You let it teach you. Because the man who can feel rejection and not react, who can feel fear and still move forward, is the man who becomes unshakable. And when she senses that she doesn't just respect you, she trusts you, because you've proven something rare, not just to her, but to yourself. You've proven that your mind is your kingdom. No one else holds the keys. There's a word most men never hear growing up, but it determines everything in your relationships. Frame. Your frame is your internal compass, your values, your direction, your sense of what's true, even when it's tested. It's not about controlling hurts. It's about not losing yourself. Because the moment you start bending your beliefs just to keep her happy, you're done. And it doesn't happen all at once. Slow, subtle. You let a disrespectful comment slide. You laugh at something that actually offends you. You say yes when every cell in your body wanted to say no. You tell yourself it's compromise, but deep down, you're abandoning your frame. And here's what most men don't realize. She feels it. She doesn't always say it. But the moment you betray your own standards just to be liked, something in her shifts. Respect erodes. Not because she's cruel, but because she no longer feels safe in your leadership. A man who folds on principle is a man she can't trust to hold the weight of real connection. Women test your frame not because they want chaos, but because they want certainty. They want to know, is he really who he says he is? And every time you hold your ground calmly, not defensively, You answered that question. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to explain yourself 100 times. You just live your values loud enough that they don't need an introduction. So let me ask you, do you stand for something? Or are you constantly shape-shifting to keep the peace? Because she's not looking for peace at all costs. Kaj, she's looking for a man who leads with clarity, even when it's hard, even when it shakes the room. Hold your frame, okay? And you won't need to chase her. She'll feel pulled towards you, cause you've become the anchor she didn't know she was searching for. There is a difference between leading, okay, and chasing. Most men confuse the two. They think if they show up enough, text enough, give enough, she'll finally see their worth. But here's the truth. Chasing doesn't show strength, it exposes insecurity. Because when you chase, what you're really saying is, I don't believe I'm enough on my own. I need you to validate my value. That's not leadership. That's desperation in disguise. The man who truly leads doesn't need to convince. He doesn't flood her phone with messages or buy her attention with effort. He builds a life so powerful, so purposeful, that she wants to be part of it, not because he asked, but because he didn't have to. Let me ask you something. Would you follow someone who needs you to approve every move? Or would you follow the one walking with such clarity you feel safer just being in their orbit? Women feel that difference. They can sense when you're trying to be chosen, versus when you've already chosen yourself. That's why this path isn't about tricks or tactics. It's about work. Real work. The kind done in silence. 5 a.m. when no one's watching. In the gym. In your thoughts. In your mission. You lead without chasing by becoming so complete, so full, that your love becomes an invitation. Not a demand. She doesn't want to be your oxygen. She wants to breathe easier around you. So build your discipline, build your body, build your mind, and most of all, build your presence. Because when a man walks with purpose, the right woman doesn't need to be chased. She follows. Let me leave you with this. You don't have to convince her that you're valuable. You just have to become so grounded, so whole, so focused that the world around you can't help but notice. You don't earn her respect by begging for her attention. You earn it by building a life that reflects your standards without needing applause. Because when you live with clarity, with quiet strength, with direction, she feels it. In the way you speak, in the way you move, in the way you don't chase. Don't try to be the man she needs to rescue. Be the man she wants to rest beside. She's not looking for a fixer-upper. She's looking for a rocks, something solid, something unshakable. A presence that doesn't disappear when things get hard. A calm that doesn't vanish when tested. So stop trying to impress her with words. Let your life speak for you. Every habit you master. Every moment you choose purpose over pleasure. Okay. Every time you hold your ground instead of folding for comfort, you become more undeniable. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be in motion. And the truth is when you stop seeking to be loved and start becoming a man worth respecting, she'll feel it, even in silence. She'll lean in, not because you asked her to, but because she sees something rare, something powerful, something real. And if she doesn't, let her go. You were never meant to orbit her world. You were meant to build one so strong, she either rises to join it or fades in the distance. This is your reminder. You don't become the man she can't forget by holding on to her. You become him by holding on to yourself.